Thank you, choir. That was lovely. And thank you for stilling hearts and minds as we open ourselves and ready ourselves to enter into the text and discover what God has, what kind of good news, what kind of word God has for us today. Just out of curiosity, how many of you were here last week, our anniversary Sunday? I'm glad you were here. Those of you who are here probably remember that our gospel reading last week was a conversation between Jesus and his disciples, particularly Peter, James, and John. And Jesus asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" And they went through a whole list of what people were saying about Jesus, a prophet, Elijah. And then Jesus asked them, "But who do you say I am?" And you may remember that Peter blurted out, "You're the Messiah." And immediately Jesus said, "The Messiah, the Son of Man, must experience persecution. He will be handed over, he will be arrested, he will be persecuted, crucified, and then raised." Obviously, the disciples didn't understand this because after this conversation, they're on a journey from Caesarea Philippi to Capernaum, and they're going around Galilee, kind of a back road, so that Jesus can do some kind of private teaching with his disciples and not be interrupted by the public who are kind of trying to get close to Jesus and find out what this was all about. And after Jesus has said that the Son of Man must be persecuted, crucified, and raised, on this journey, the disciples, we know they didn't get it because you know what they're arguing about? Who's the greatest? Who's number one? Here they are arguing about who's number one. Jesus has just taught them the most central lesson of selfless love, to lose one's life for one's friends, and they're arguing about who's the greatest, and perhaps arguing about who will replace Jesus after he's been crucified. Well, I want to read to you today that account from Mark's Gospel, chapter 9, verses 30 through 37. They went on from there and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him, and 3 days after being killed, he will rise again." But they did not understand what Jesus was saying, and were afraid to ask him what he had meant. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But as you can imagine, they were silent. For on the way, they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. Jesus sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." Praise be to God, the word of the Lord. Amen. Do you remember as kids playing a game called King of the Castle? How many remember King of the Castle? Oh, good, I'm not alone in this. If you didn't play King of the Castle, I bet you played a game very similar to King of the Castle. The idea of the game was you found a high point, maybe a mound of dirt, maybe a hill or a flight of stairs. Or if mom and dad were out of the house, maybe it was the living room couch. A high point. And the idea was to scratch and claw and push and shove your way to the top of the hill to get to the top of the proverbial castle. Push your friends aside, step on whoever's head you needed to, so long as you got to the top. And when you got to the top, you got to sing a victory song. You remember the victory song? Sing it with me. I'm the king of the castle, you're the dirty rascal. Boom! Until somebody knocked you off the hill, right? You're singing that victory song, and you didn't see you were getting blindsided by someone trying to knock you down. Well, you know, I pick up the scriptures, and I read the Gospel of Mark, particularly this passage today, and I can't help but feel that Jesus' disciples are playing an adult version of King of the Castle. Here they are on the road to Capernaum with Jesus, whispering among themselves, arguing about who's number one, numero uno, who's the greatest. And this is not just a friendly competitiveness. There's nothing wrong with a little competition. After all, here we are in America. We have a society built upon free market competition. And if you have a few people competing, the theory is we're going to get better goods and services, right? We don't have a problem with a little competition. That's okay. In fact, it can be downright good for us. And there's nothing wrong with a little friendly one-upmanship every now and then, is there? You know, we do the dozens with friends every now and then. We do a little bantering back and forth about who's greater, who's better, who's faster, in a playful sort of way. I shared with our Wednesday congregation, our Soul Cafe group this past Wednesday, about a time my brother and I had not seen each other in a number of years. And we met at a restaurant in Sarnia, Ontario, across the river from Port Huron, Michigan, for a birthday celebration for my grandmother. And we realized not only had we changed a bit, but each of us had got a brand new car. Well, not brand new, but new to us. My brother Steve had this bright, red, flashy Mazda RX-7. Woohoo! You remember, with the rotary engine and the 5-speed? I remember. See, at the time, I had a new family sedan, the 4-door Honda Accord. It was a 5-speed too, and pretty peppy. In fact, it was so peppy that after the restaurant, when we drove the 15 miles through the country back to my grandmother's house, my brother and I decided we'd do a little racing. We're going to see whose car is a little more quick, that RX-7 with its rotary engine or that Honda Accord with its 5-speed. Well, I don't know if it was really quicker, or I was more gutsy, or he was more gutsy, but we raced back to Grandma's house. And when we got to Grandma's house, we pulled into the driveway and we parked the cars and we stood back admiring each other's new vehicles. I said, Steve, boy, your car is really fast. And he says, yeah, well, you know, it's an RX-7. What can I say? And in a quick moment of one-upmanship, I said to him, yeah, your car is really fast because you were flying when I passed you. You played the game with your siblings too, right? It's playful, and that's not what Jesus is talking about here. That's not what the scriptures are talking about here. There's something more dangerous at work in Mark's gospel. This is about a competition for power. This is about a competition for status and control in the life of the faith community. This is a battle for succession of Jesus Christ. Who will be the greatest? You know that old saying, who died and left you, boss? I think the disciples are thinking, well, if Jesus is going to die, who's going to be boss? Who's going to be numero uno, baby, when Jesus is gone? And it's ironic because Jesus has just taught the disciples about selflessness. He's taught them about something we call agape love, a love that gives itself away for its friends, a love that's willing to lose itself in order that those who are hurting and suffering can be raised up. Jesus has just told them that the Son of Man, God's anointed, God's Messiah, must be handed over, arrested, persecuted, killed, and then raised on the third day.